Hello and welcome. I am Patience Elango, your host, and this is elmag. In our top stories today, we zoom in on the published list of candidates and the ensuing palaver of pre-electoral petitions tabled at competent courts, amongst other news, views, and interviews. With me in the studio today is our guest, Dr. Sonny Andrew, Head of Unit in charge of Legal Affairs at Elections Cameroon. Good evening, Doctor, and welcome on the program.
Good evening, Patience.
Well, Doctor, before we get into the matter proper, I invite you to watch this report that summarizes the decisions taken by the Electoral Board concerning the list of candidates for the September 30, 2013 legislative and council elections. Watch this.
Officials of the elections management body ELECAM went to work on the 19th of July, soon after political parties did submit nomination papers for the September 30 parliamentary and council elections. Divided into 4 sub-commissions, the officials worked day and night on the documents. 10 days later, the ELECAM board members in an ordinary board session started examining the reports of the 4 sub-commissions. It was in the presence of the chairman of the electoral board, who seized a moment with the press to press on for greater involvement of political parties, traditional rulers and quarter heads in the distribution of voters' cards.
If political party leaders, civil society, local chiefs, quarter heads, if you can bring together 50 people, 60 people or more, I think this has been done by a certain politician in Douala. I don't want to name her, because it may look as if I'm doing her publicity for the elections. But it has been done. Yes, it has been done. Hundreds of people have been brought together. Elections Cameroon goes and distributes the cards. This will enable us to be able to do an optimal distribution of the voters' cards.
All other questions related to the makeup of the nomination papers were practically left unanswered, and this until Thursday, when the elections management body finally released the list of those who are now expected to run for the 2013 September 30 twin elections. It was then that the President of Elections Cameroon, Dr. Samuel Fonkamazo, disclosed that 202 lists out of the 250 submitted by 38 political parties for the parliamentary election had been retained, while 724 lists of candidates were retained out of the 787 lists submitted for the municipal elections by 35 political parties.
Manu Division, Acquire Council, 35 seats, 2 lists, PAP, CPDM. Elumajor Council, 25 seats, 1 list, CPDM. Manfe Council, 25 seats.
Also running for every parliamentary seat is the ruling party, the CPDM, while newcomers like Honorable Ayapola Bine with his People Action Party, Issa Chiroma with his National Salvation Front of Cameroon, and Anicien Georges Ekani of Manidem are also hoping that they too will be represented this time at the National Assembly. The main opposition party, the SDF on their part, had their nomination papers rejected in the Adamawa, East, Centre and Far North regions of the country, like some other political parties. A situation that has given rise to numerous petitions addressed to competent courts. And as Elections Cameroon prepares its defense, so too are some political parties now poised not only to provide justifications for their list to be reinstated, but they too have also filed complaints against certain political parties. Meanwhile, the non-respect of gender balance, the non-presentation of the receipts of payment of the required deposits into the state treasury, the submission of incomplete files, and the presentation of underage candidates were some of the reasons that ELECAM provided for rejecting some lists of candidates.
Welcome back. Dr. Ewang, you and I just watched that report, and if there is a noun that strikes me in that report, it is that of petitions in quotes. Now, for the comprehension of every viewer out there, and for my comprehension, tell me, what is an electoral petition, Doctor?
An electoral petition is a formal complaint made to the courts by any of the electoral stakeholders who is not happy with his electoral rights which electoral rights might have been infringed by some other stakeholder of this process, seeking redress from the court, asking the court to reinstate such his or her electoral rights.
By what you just said, what are the different types of petitions that arise from the management of elections?
We are now at the stage of candidatures, and of course, as the Electoral Board published the list of candidates, you have candidates whose lists were rejected, and these candidates whose lists were rejected are filing petitions to the courts. For the legislative elections, they are filing these petitions to the Constitutional Council, and for the municipal elections, they are filing these petitions in the administrative bench of the Supreme Court. We can talk of petitions that have to do with legislative elections and petitions that have to do with municipal elections. But all these will boil down to one and the same thing. For example, you may have a petitioner who is petitioning the court to revisit and why not reject the decision of the Electoral Board so that the court will rehabilitate his list so that he can be able to run for the election. So there are so many reasons why these petitions are filed.
And what are the provisions in the law for the submission and management of petitions that arise from the nomination of candidates?
There are various sections of the law. For the legislative elections, for example, you have sections 164 and following, and for the municipal elections, you have section 181 and following. And if we go and look at the nature of the nomination of candidatures, of course, the law says that nomination papers must be deposited in 3 copies. Your signature is well legalized by the competent authorities. And this declaration paper must mention certain elements like your name, date of birth, parents, residence, the logo of your party, and the sign for the purpose of printing ballot papers. So you must also say something about the sociological component, gender aspect. All these must be well stated in the nomination paper, which should be well legalized by the competent authority. And this nomination paper must also be accompanied by a series of documents, most of which must also be well certified by competent authorities, such as the birth certificate, certificate of non-conviction, the deposit, which for legislative election is 1 million, and for the municipal election is 50,000 francs.
Doctor, just out of curiosity, who is entitled to file a petition?
For the legislative election, any candidate, political party, government agent can file the petition on behalf of the list that has been thrown out by the Electoral Board. For the municipal election, any candidate, any elector, any political party, any representative of that party can file the petition. And that petition must be dated and signed by the petitioner, because if this is not done, the petition will be thrown out, will be inadmissible.
Okay, let me just find out, what is the time limit to file a petition?
Yes, for the legislative election, once the Electoral Board published the list of candidatures, the petitioners have only 2 days. We know that this was done on the 1st of August, and they had 2 days. But before even filing, they must be notified why their lists have been rejected by the Director General of Elections. This he does immediately. Now they have 2 days to petition the Constitutional Council. For the municipal elections, they have up to 5 days to petition the administrative bench of the Supreme Court.
Now, in the case of competent courts, how much time do they have to reach a decision?
When we say that they must be heard for legislative election 10 days from the date that the petitions were deposited. And for the municipal elections, 5 days from the date that the petitions were submitted.
Doctor, it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
It's a pleasure for me also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is elmag. In recent times, the public square has been dominated by debates on whether registered potential voters can vote with or without their biometric voter cards on election day. On that subject, yes, Dr. Fongam Samuel Azu, Elekam's board chair and president of Elections Cameroon. This is what he has to say.
Section 103 of the Electoral Code is clear. The voter who enters the polling station has to present first your card, and the other thing which I need to indicate to you is that your card bears your polling station and your polling center. If you don't have your card, you will not know your polling center. So why would anyone not collect their card so as to know where their polling center is? Does the national identity card give you that polling center? No. So that's one added reason for each person going to collect their voter's card. So you collect your voter's card, section 103 sub 1. You present your voter's card, which now has a picture. The legislator adds that, and your national identity card. This was when the voter's card did not have pictures. So they had to see it in order to see whether you were there. But now that the voter's card has your picture, I am sure that in the days to come, the legislator may amend section 1 sub 3 to indicate that what is required of you is to present your voter's card. But there is an exception. The proviso to section 1 sub 3 is that if you have lost your card, you couldn't find or something, which means that you should have collected it first. Isn't that so? It is not that you should leave it and then come and show your national identity card. So if you collected it, lost it, then you will now have to identify yourself. Your name is on the list, but we want to know if you are the one. So what do? You present your national ID card, which bears your picture, so that we can ascertain that the person who wants to vote is a person whose name is on the list. So please, this message, try to let Cameroonians know that I think it is good for everybody, for the reasons I've just explained, to go out now and collect their voter's card.
Please do take your national identity card. Go to the Elekam Council Branch office that covers your place of residence and do so. That said, it's been a pleasure having you today. Goodbye and see you next time.